Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Norsaga and is from Meramorph Games. Now if you like what you see throughout the rest of this video and you want to find out more information about Norsaga, I would encourage you to go to the link at the bottom of your screen, and down in the description section of the video, that's going to take you to the official Kickstarter project page where you can find out more information and hopefully consider backing the project. Now what is Norsaga? Well, as the name implies, it has to do with Norse mythology, but unlike so many other board games that are based on Norse mythology, this is not about going to war and hacking and slashing and just beating up the other players. This is actually about building your family tree. Specifically, you have a saga that you are thematically relating to the other players' characters, and you need to flesh out that saga's story by talking about your parents and your grandparents, and hopefully their traits that you describe are going to match up to the occurrences that happen in the saga. Now, this is not actually a storytelling game. Mechanically, it's actually a hand management and set collection game. You are trying to play cards down into your family tree in order to match up traits and recessive traits that are necessary to fully tell the tale of your saga. Of course, the other players are trying to do this, and they're trying to do it before you do. If you can remove all the tokens from your saga before the other players do, you're going to win the game. There are some advanced rules as well. You might enlist the help of skalds and ghosts in your stories in order to either flesh out your story or to trip up the other players. Let's go ahead and take a brief look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back, and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Norsaga from Meramorph Games. Now, the important thing I need to mention here, aside from the fact that this is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter, you can follow the link at the bottom of the video, in the description section, is that this is a prototype version of the game. So you can expect some of the components and possibly even the artwork and a couple of the rules to change as well. So please note that as we go through the rest of the overview. Now, this is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players with a Norse mythology theme. You are trying to tell the tale of your family's great saga, the great things that they've done throughout their history. So each player is going to start with one of these saga cards on the table in front of them. They're all based on different sort of Norse mythology myths. Like here is the Fen Wolf, and then we have the Wayfrost, and you've got, to show you a few of these, you've got the Ash Gallow, and the last one I'll show you here, and there's a lot of these that you can potentially choose from, is the Skull. And now what you're really focusing on here are these different traits at the bottom of the card. These are the different elements of your story that you're trying to incorporate into your family tree and vice versa. So everyone's going to, these are all randomized. So you're going to put your saga card in front of you, and you're going to put tokens that match up to those colors at the bottom of the card. Your ultimate goal in this game is to remove all of these trait markers from your saga and put them out into your family tree. Now, each player is going to start off with a little player mat and then 4 cards from the main deck. These represent all the different heroes of your potential tale, representing your lineage. So when you play cards in this game, you're going to play them out as a family tree. There will be you at the top of the family tree. Then there's going to be your parents, and gender doesn't matter for this. Then you're going to have your parents, grandparents. So the grand total here is that you're going to have a total of 7 cards in your family tree. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to match up traits. You're trying to match up both the main traits and recessive traits. But I'll get back to that in a second. Let's talk about just the normal turn order of the game. So the normal turn order, you have 3 different things that you're going to do on your turn. One of them is that you're going to be drawing your hand back up to 4 cards. So you have 4 cards in your hand at the start of the game, in addition to the saga that you're starting off with. Then you're going to use embellishments if you have them. I'm going to get back to embellishments in a minute because it has to do with the cards that you have in play. The last thing that you do is you play a card. So at the start of the game, you're not going to have any cards in play. So you're going to have to play one of the 4 cards that you have in hand. So let's go ahead and say that this is the card that I start off with. Now this card here, This is one belonging one of the red cards. So the dominant trait here is red, and then you've got the recessive trait, which is blue. So in order for that to become a full trait, it's going to have to link up with another recessive trait from another hero, and that would be your lineage. But if you're playing this as your starting character as you, then that's who you are. You're not going to be linking up with anything. However, you still get your dominant trait. So if I was to play this, I would be able to remove this red marker from my saga and put it there. Now I have one of my my markers off the saga. It's on my dominant trait. Now on future turns, I'll be playing more cards down to my tableau here as my parents. So we'll have this, and well, I wouldn't want to play that one because I've already fulfilled red. But let's see, I need a green, so I might go ahead and do this. That has a dominant trait of yellow and a recessive trait of green, so that's going to let me remove this yellow off of here. So if I could play one more that has a dominant trait or a recessive trait of green, which would be this, then I'm going to be able to put another green here because those two recessive traits have linked up. Actually, let me get a little bit closer in there so you can see what's going on. So you see that I've got this recessive trait, they've been combined together, so boom, there's like that. Now, you're never going to be able to put 3 down here. So if I make the choice to put a yellow marker here, then I won't be able to have a green marker for the dominant trait of this hero. But then again, I don't need to because I don't have another green marker to place out there. So this is really how the main core mechanic of the game will work. Now I need to get rid of these blue ones. So for my parents, I might remember gender and or anything else doesn't really matter for the cards that you play. So I might put this one there, which is going to let me take a blue. And then I have, let's see if I can get another blue with a recessive trait. So I put this here. And now I've been able to take another blue out. And the first person to remove every marker from their saga and put it onto their family trees trait spaces is going to be the winner of the game. The game will end immediately at that point. Now going back a step, let's talk about embellishments. And you'll actually have the potential to do embellishments right after you redraw at the start of your turn. Your player mat is going to tell you the different embellishments that you're going to have access to. And how you're going to determine what embellishments you have access to is really determined by your starting hero, you, in other words. So if I started off with a red hero at the top, in other words, my dominant trait is red, then I would have access to a first generation embellishment. So in this case, it is Adapt, which lets me dismiss one of my heroes and place a new card in that spot. If one of my parents also had a dominant trait of red, then I would have a second generation embellishment. And you can only use one embellishment per turn, but you can use any of the embellishments that you have from first, second, or third generation. So here I have Assault, which lets me discard 2 cards, and if I do, I choose a player. They must dismiss a hero from their family tree. And if all 3 generations have at least one dominant red person, then I have the Invade embellishment, which is place a card on another player's family tree, which can be very powerful. Normally, you can only play cards on your own family tree. Now, you can't just like put red heroes or any of the other color heroes in your second and third generations and hope to get embellishments. You have to have started off that way. So you have to work your way down from first generation to second generation, then potentially third generation. So that is how embellishments work. So just to reiterate, at the beginning of your turn, you're going to draw back up to 4 cards. Then you're going to use embellishments if you have them, and then when they're all different for each of the different colors. And then you are going to play a card trying to get the trait markers off of your saga and put them onto your hero cards. Now, what I haven't talked about yet are the advanced rules of the game, which lets you play with 2 different types of cards that you wouldn't use in the standard game. So they just add a little bit of complexity to it. The first are the Skalds, which are the people with the purple dominant trait. Now, none of the sagas have purple, which means it's kind of a bummer. You're never going to be able to put one of your trait markers here, although they do have recessive traits that you can potentially link up with partners. But the benefit of playing the Skalds, the purple people, the purple people eaters, are that you can immediately do an embellishment. This is going to let you potentially use 2 or, depending on the ability, even more embellishments in a round. So you would play the Skalds if you really want to use an embellishment, if that's going to help you out. And you can see they all have their own unique artwork, just like all of the other cards. The other type of characters that you could use with the advanced rules are the Ghosts, these black characters, which are negative characters. You don't want them in your family tree because they don't even have a recessive trait. But the benefit of the ghosts is that you can play them on other players' family trees. You can trip them up and essentially put null space in their family tree, forcing them to react and try to get rid of them. But if you if you're stuck with the ghosts in your family tree, you'll be able to gain access to their embellishments, which can be very powerful. In fact, the third level of embellishment for the ghost lets you wipe out everyone's entire third family tree row, all of their grandparents. But by doing every time that you use their embellishment, you have to put a doom token, one of the black tokens, on your playmat, signifying that other players are now free to play whatever hero cards, ghost or otherwise, they want on your character cards, on your character's family tree until the start of your next turn. And even though all the ghosts behave the same, they all have their own unique and interesting artwork as well. And that is just a quick overview of Norsaga. You're trying to play cards down to tell the story of your family tree and how they survived this brave and heroic saga. If you are the first person to use every trait from your lineage in the tale of your forebearers, then you will be the winner of the game. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. The first thing that people are going to notice, I believe, about Norsaga is its theme and how it's integrated into the gameplay. The whole idea of, just putting aside the Norse mythology theme for a second, the plot of the game, you're building a family tree and trying to bring out these traits and recessive traits in order to have that wind its way back into your story, improve your story, and its merit. That's just going to be a really interesting theme for a lot of people, and something that personally I have not seen explored in a lot of different games. Adding the Norse theme on top of that is just sort of an icing on the cake thing, because if I'm not mistaken, I think that Norse mythology is kind of hot right now, and has been for the last couple of years, so a lot of people are really going to be able to get into that, and the art style is really distinct from a lot of other Norse mythology games that I've seen, and that it's much more almost cartoonish and family friendly, but in a very good way, I think. It's something that people are going to look at it and it stands out in a crowd of other games. And it's interesting that there can be a lot of interaction in the game because of the embellishment powers that you have. So it's not just that you're putting cards down and hoping that you can match up the different traits, but you can also put certain cards into both your card and then your parents and your grandparents. If you can match up the colors of the cards, you're going to be able to have access to more and more powerful embellishments of a certain type, which is really going to be a great benefit to you during the game. And that's where a lot of the interaction between the players come in, the potential to be able to play cards on other people's family trees, or just to be able to take heroes back into your hands in order to put more out during the course of the game as the situation changes. It's very powerful to have those embellishments. Now, if you choose to play with the advanced rules, and you don't have to, the game is a complete game with just the main cards, but if you do play with the advanced rules, then that opens up your options. Now you have the ghost cards that you can play. You don't really want to play them into your family tree as much. It's more to trip up the other players because they're kind of null and void for taking tokens off of your saga. But if you do choose to play them on yourself, you gain even more powerful embellishments. But if you can trip them up and put them into other players' family trees, even better than that. Same thing with the Skalds. While they're not really going to help you, they have a recessive trait, but even though they're not going to help you as much to finish your saga, they do give you the ability to sort of chain embellishments together, which could potentially be very, very powerful if played at the right time. But of course, you don't need to play with those extra advanced rules if you don't want to, which is another way that the game is going to be more accessible to a lot of people. If you want it to just simply be building your family tree and maybe using your embellishments, it can be that, especially for younger players. But for older players who want a little more edge to the game, they can play with these extra cards, the Ghosts and the Skalds, and it still feels like a whole coherent game, but just with a little more complexity for what I would call gamerly gamers. So I really think it's going to appeal to a wide variety of people of different ages and different gameplay styles. It can be as light as a filler game, or it can be more complex based on what you add into it. And like I said, it has an interesting theme, interesting art style, and I think that it'll be very accessible to a wide group of gamers. And if you are one of those people that you think you might be interested in the game, I would encourage you to go to the link at the bottom of your screen or down in the description section of the video. That's going to take you to the official Kickstarter project page. You'll find tons and tons of information about the game, and hopefully consider backing the project. That is Norsaga from Meramorph Games. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.